welcome to Bello's Designs. My name is Catherine, and tonight I'm going to be making this card called Tango and Tilly in Love. We're going to need a few Lavinia stamps to get us started. The first one we'll be using is Tilly and Tango, LAV 726. The Lavinia Fieldgrass, LAV 197. The Fairy Toadstool, which is LAV 671. And I have gone ahead and grabbed a set of Valentine sentiments from my stash, and these are called Love Messages from Hero Arts. We'll need a few pieces of cardstock pre-cut. I have gone ahead and cut out this piece, which is 10 by 5, and pre-cut my heart shape out of the middle. I'll also be using this piece of 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 to actually stamp on. And this is the multifarious cardstock, which is also by Lavinia. We'll be using some Lavinia ink pads. So we'll be working with the Elements ink pad by Lavinia in Olive. I'll be using VersaFine Claire in Nocturne for my stamped images. And we're also going to be playing with the Interference ink from Lisa Horton, and I have this in Opal Blush Shimmer. This is a really fun ink, and I'm looking forward to making some more creations to share with you using that. I have pre-stamped and cut my sentiment using the Lots of Love stamp from my messages. I'm going to use a small little palette to mix in my Dinkles, which also are from Lavinia. And tonight we'll be using the deep yellow, the pink, and the lime divine. You're also going to want to have a mister, so I'll be using this one by Tim Holtz, which I really like, along with a watercolor paintbrush. I have my Signo Uniball white gel pen for some added details, Hero Arts watercolor pencil in gray, my Micron pen in black to fill in any spots that we might need to touch up when we stamp. I'll be using my pink Posca pen. I love this pen because it's very glittery and shiny. It's super cute, adds nice touches to my project. And I'll also be using the fan brush with Dinkles. A couple other things that I'm going to need include, I've got the double-sided foam tape and some foam strips to put my card together. All right, I'm going to mix up some Dinkles and I will be right back. All right, crafty friends, I have gone ahead and added some of my Dinkles to my paint palette. And I'm just going to come in with a little bit of water and mix up each of the colors. We're going to need very little yellow today, but we are going to want some green and a generous amount of pink. And I'm going to come in, I'll mix up the yellow first because that's the lightest color. I don't have to worry about contaminating it. When it's cold like it has been recently, you might want to think about using some warm water to mix these up because I do find that the powders dissolve a little bit better if the water's not freezing cold. So here's my green, and that looks like a nice deep dark green. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to mix up the pink. I'm going to come back with my paintbrush and add a little bit of water to it. A little bit to this well right here because we're going to actually use this to make 2 shades of pink. So I'm going to want a nice light wash for the first layer on my card, and then we'll go with the deeper color for the next layer. All right, so I'm going to move this to the side a little bit and put down a piece of multifarious cardstock and give it a couple little sprays with my mister. The next thing I'm going to do is come in with a stencil. If you have a stencil at home, then you are welcome to use that, but I have just created my own to separate the sky from the ground using a piece of paper I've torn in half. I'm going to start with the pink because in my little fairyland, my fairies live where the sky is always rosy. Not sure about yours, but I'm just going to start at the top and I'm going to brush it across. Now, if you get a little bit of dinkles on your paper, that is not a big deal because it is water soluble. So you can absolutely go in and just mop up whatever color you got there that you didn't want. You might have noticed that I got a little bit of green up there. I think I'm going to make this just a little bit darker. And I'm going to come back in. And once again, just work it out to get that pink sky. All right, now I'm going to pick up my stencil and flip it over because I'm coming right back in with it to take care of my green grass. So I'm going to come right across that grass and just give it a nice green wash across the bottom. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about how dark or light it is at this point. Like I said, I can come back in and add color to any of it if I wanted to. So let's go here. I'm going to pick up a little bit more pink and come back in and give this pink sky a nice wash. Now, it's going to change color slightly as it dries. Like I've said, you can always come back in later and add more color or take some away, depending on what you're looking for. You can just mop up a little bit of this pink. And we're going to come back in again with a clean brush. And I'm just going to give it another once over with some green. Because while that pink rosy sky is one of my favorite colors, absolutely want a green bottom for some grass in my finished project. So I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes and then I'm going to come back and show you what to do with the next layer. All right, back again. This is not completely dry, but it's mostly dry and it's dry enough for our purposes right now. So I'm going to come in with my green, a little bit of green, and just give it a few swipes across the cardstock to darken it up and make some little grassy lines in the bottom. All right, and we're gonna just let that sit for a few minutes. And I'll come in and do the same with the pink across the top. This time, I'm gonna go for that deeper pink because I really want some dark pink clouds in my picture. I think I'm going to darken it up across this line. And you will notice that my cardstock is buckling up a little bit. But before we're finished with our project today, I'm going to actually show you how to come in and fix that. Now I want to mop this up just a little bit because I'm going to come back in and go over it again with a little more of the pink. Try to wash out some of that green that we've got in there. All right, and I think that's probably going to look really nice when it's finished. So I'm going to leave it to dry, and nobody likes to watch paint dry, so I'll be back soon. All right, my heat gun made quick work of drying this card base. I'm going to come in with my fan brush and pick up some of the yellow dinkles, and we're going to splatter it on top of the pink sky and the green grass. And I think it makes a very interesting effect when that happens. It seems to pull out the other colors, leaving the yellow behind. Now, you would think that you might not see the yellow if you put it on top of a darker color, but you're going to see it looks pretty cool. Reminds me of little flashes of sunlight on my project. So I'm just going to tap it on there and leave it to sit for a minute while I just rinse out my brush. And then we're going to come in and we're going to mop it up with a paper towel, and you will see the change in the card base in the background and what that yellow does to it. I think it's kind of a neat effect myself. So I'm going to clean up all these dinkles and put them away. And I don't think that you want to see that, but I will be back soon for the background of this card. And I just want to talk quickly about an extra piece of cardstock that you're probably going to want to have for the back of your background, because once you're done working with all those liquid colors, you might have a little bit of a mess back here. And we're going to want to cover that on our finished project. So I went ahead and cut out a piece of cardstock that is 4 7/8 by 4 7/8, and we're going to use that to back our panel, because when we open our card, we're not going to want to see that. All right, so I'm just going to put that aside for now, and we're going to get started with the stamping on this part of the card. So I'm going to start with the mice, and I'm going to stamp them in the VersaFine Clair Nocturne Black, which is a really nice ink that works really well to cover up any of the backgrounds that you've made on your card. We're going to start with this little guy. Now on the original card, I had them just kind of reaching towards each other, but I think I would rather put them a little closer together and have them holding hands. So rather than mounting them on one stamp block as I did the first time, I'm going to put them each on their own stamp block. And we're going to see if we can line them up to be holding hands. So I'm going to start with this one because she's reaching that way, and I want to start closest to the right edge of my card. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp and then place her right about here. Now we're just going to hold it down, give the ink a few seconds to soak into the cardstock. And you know, if it doesn't come out perfect on the first try, that's why we keep a black marker with us. And she looks pretty good, I think, for a first try stamping. So now I'm going to come in with the other mouse, and I'm going to try to line him up so that they are reaching for each other and holding hands. And once again, just holding it down for a minute to hold it in place and give that ink a chance to soak into the background. Right, and I think they look pretty good. I don't think that I'm going to have to restamp those or fill them in. Okay, so we're going to put that aside. I'm now going to come in with my stamp platform, and I'm going to stamp my fairy toadstool. I don't want it too high up, so I think I'm going to put it right here next to this little mouse. And that looks like it's about where I'm going to want it. I'll bring in my stamp platform and get it all set up, and we'll be able to work from there. So I have learned that working with the Lisa Horton multifarious, or I'm sorry, not the multifarious, the Inference ink, I'm using the Opal Blush Shimmer, which is going to look blue on my project, but if I were to use it on a piece of dark cardstock, I would get this pink color, which is kind of a neat feature for these inks. So I'll be looking to make more projects using them in the future. All right, I'm going to fit this right into the corner of my stamping platform and put that mushroom, I think I'm going to put it right here over the mice. Let's just line this up to make sure we like how that's going to look. I think I'm going to move it down a little bit into the side. All right, I've gone ahead and placed my card base on my stamp platform. I like to use a sticky mat to kind of hold it in place and just make sure that mat is lined up right in the corner, but I don't always want my cardstock right in the corner. So since this has curled up a little bit from being wet, I'm going to go ahead and use both the sticky platform and the magnet to hold it in place. And I'm going to use the clear sheet that came with my stamp to decide where exactly I want to place it. And I can also compare it with the top of my card, and I think that looks like a really good spot for it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this with the actual stamp. Let's get it out from underneath there. Close my platform to pick it up. Right, and we're going to be using the interference ink from Lisa Horton Crafts in the Opal Blush Shimmer, so it's going to come out as a shimmery blue on my actual card. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. Oops. And I did get a little bit on my finger, so I'm going to be very careful to clean that off and make sure I don't get it on any of the other parts of my card where I don't want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my stamp platform and press it down to ink it up and see how it came out. I think I'm probably going to want to ink it up again a second time. Yep, just to make it a little bit darker. And I really want to get some of the detail at the top of that stamp. So, and if I have to do it more than twice, that's okay. That's why we use stamp platforms, isn't it? Right, and it looks like we need a little bit more in here towards this side of my stamp. So go ahead and give it a little rub, hold it down and see if I can get a really nice impression with that toadstool. Looks like I need a little bit more right in there at the top. So let me go in here with just this little bit. I'm going to clean off around the edges because I really don't want any mishaps. Right, and let's go right in. And we'll just hold it down in that spot and see if we can get it in there. Get it to pick up that ink just a little bit more. I think I'm going to do it one more time, just to be sure. Just give it a good press, and that looks pretty good. I think it looks dark enough that I'm not going to have to worry about going over it. And we'll be able to add some details and some shimmer to the stamped piece. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my toadstool. Just move it whole platform right out of the way. Again, cleaning off my fingers, making sure I'm not transferring any ink anywhere I don't want it. How many times have we had that happen, huh? All right. So here we go. I'll move this over here. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is come in with my Lavinia Elements in Olive by Lavinia Stamps and my field grass, and we're going to add just some little grassy details around the card. So at this point, I'm going to want to take another piece of scrap cardstock just to help me with the placement, because this is a really big piece of field grass and I just want to use some of the tip to get lots of details. So open my ink. Okay. And get ink just on the very tip top of that. And I think I'm going to place a couple little pieces. Oh, I almost missed that. Do you see that right there? We definitely don't want to get that on our card. So I'm going to give it a little wipe with my stamping chamois and come down. All right, and here we go. We'll stamp that little piece of field grass. All right, oh, look at that. That's perfect. I like how that came out. I'm gonna clean the block off. Let's stamp a little bit on the corner. We'll do this little corner of it here. All right, there we go. Stamp it down there. All right, and I think I'm going to do a couple little random pieces down here. And once again, I'm just cleaning off this stamp in between each use because I want to make sure that I'm not getting ink anywhere where I don't want it. And I think we'll add another little piece down here. All right, maybe a piece here. Once again, cleaning it off in between, because if you know me, you would know that I am famous for dropping my stamps and my ink pads on projects that are nearly finished, and I really don't want that to happen today. So here we go. All right, and I think I'm going to add one more piece of grass down here. I'm not positive it's going to show up on the finished card, but just in case, we'll add it down there. And once again, just getting the very top of my stamp inked up and wiping off the extra ink because that seems to be my thing today. And I'll use my mask. Just cover that up right here. And there we go. That's pretty perfect. So I'm going to cover my ink pad and place it to the side. Once again, clean my stamp, make sure we don't have any accidents here. All right, let's see. The next thing I'm going to do is come in. Well, it looks like I did get a little smudge right there. Let's see if that's even going to show. I think by the time we get our sentiment on it, it's probably not going to be noticeable, so I'm going to leave it alone because I don't want to make it any worse. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my gray watercolor pencil, and I just want to ground the field grass on the bottom. Give it a little shadow, right, and a little bit underneath the mice. Now, working with Lavinia stamps is a new hobby for me, although I'm not new to stamping. I'm really still kind of learning how to ground my images and getting the feel for that. So if anybody has any advice, I'm willing to take it. All right, at this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead with my white gel pen, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to fill in some of these little speckles on my toadstool and some of the lines just to bring them out and see if we can get rid of some of the color in the background. Now, I'm left-handed, so I'm going to turn it so you can actually see what I'm doing. Stampers, we are all set up, and while that was drying underneath my block, I did notice that I had a little smudge right here next to the mouse that I hadn't noticed before. So I'm going to come back in with my field grass stamp and my olive ink pad, and we're just going to stamp another little tuft of grass right in that spot. and cover up that little smudge. So put that right there. Let's see how that came out. Oh, it looks like it's kind of floating in air, doesn't it? So I'm going to go back in again with another little piece of inked up stamp. And we will, whoa, we'll work on putting that all together so it looks like it is growing out of the ground. Come back in, and I'm going to mask right to the ground. I'm going to ground it right here. Let's see how that looks. That looks a little bit better. I can also come in with my pen and draw a little bit of a stem right there. Here we go, and I'm going to come back in and just shade it as I've done with the rest of them. Just a little bit under there, the side of my pencil. There we go. All right, we are ready to put it together. So I'm going to cover up this ink pad and get this stamp out of the way, just to make sure I have no mishaps or accidents. I think we've done pretty good so far. I have taken my double-sided 3D tape and added it to the inside of my card. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pick tool to pick all of that off. All the way around the card. Get rid of those little pieces. Just want to give it lots of support since it's so open in the middle. I want to make sure it holds up really well. Right, just a few more to go. We'll be done. Oh. This one's going to be stubborn. Just this one last corner left. And one more to go. There we go. Now when I line up my cards, I don't know about you, but I like to stand them up and make sure that they're flat on the bottom. And that helps me do, not even sure if you can see this, but I'm going to hold it flat. And then here we go. And we'll come in and press it down. And it's lined up nicely, so we're not seeing any of the edges sticking out. And I'm going to come in, and I've got a bigger piece of foam tape on the back of my sentiment. And in my original card, I did put the foam way up here in the corner, but I think with this one, because the toadstool ended up a little higher, we're going to turn it around and we're going to put it down towards the bottom of the card. Just like so. And I'm going to come in with my Posca pen. Oops. That looks straight. That looks a little off kilter. So I'll just pick it up and adjust it here. I'm going to come in with my pink Posca pen and just do a little bit of detail right up here in the top corner to give it a finished, balanced look. And that's that. There we go. There's my finished card. Here's the original design. And I hope you liked them, and thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.